Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Don Zavis, one of the co-founders of the Tucson Paranormal Society. We so appreciate you joining us here at Inside Tucson Paranormal. We have been blessed to be doing this here for the last couple of months and have absolutely wonderful, amazing guests. And today is really, no departure from that. Our guest today is Dan Baldwin. For those that may be listening to the live show right now and or maybe listening to it on the archive, Dan was kind enough to be our main speaker at one of the Tucson Paranormal Society's general meeting, which is held on the third Friday of the month at the Kettle Restaurant. So if you find yourself available, come. It's always a fun time. It's enjoyed by all. So, and it's absolutely a privilege to do what we do and how we do it. So, Mr. Baldwin, although I have your bio, I will clearly not do it justice. So, if you can kind of share with our listeners who you are, kind of what got you in the world of the paranormal.
Well, basically, I'm a writer. Grew up through newspapers, magazines, advertising, primarily advertising. Looked into ghostwriting books for other people about 20 years ago. Somewhere along the way, I discovered that, hey, maybe I have a couple of novels in me. And I started writing novels. And somewhere along the way, I got interested, more interested than normal in the paranormal. And I started writing paranormal books since then. And
so what? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan. Finish.
No, the way I got into my current level of paranormal experience, which involves pendulum dowsing, that's the skill that I have, such as it is, was really strange. I'm not a clairaudient. I mean, I don't hear voices, but I like to, in the evening, I call it dumping the trash from the day. I just go out in the front yard or take a walk around the park and just, get rid of all the negative feelings that have come up during the day, just kind of relax. And I was walking along the park near my house, and I clearly heard a voice that said, go find missing children, clear as day. And I looked around. There was nobody there. There was no car driving by. There was no windows open with TV shows blaring. And I didn't think much about it. And then the voice came back again, find missing children. And, I said, well, I need to go nuts. So there's some kind of message going on here. And I kind of ignored it I felt like I was in the old, Bill Cosby Noah routine. Noah, this is the Lord.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So, this is God.
Right. The thing, yeah. But the thing wouldn't go away. Just kind of stuck in the back of my brain, just nagging at me. And finally, I did the basic. Just look to the sky, show me a door, I'll walk through it. And it hit me that my mother had told me there is a line of a psychic ability that runs in that side of the family. I take after her side. And I said, well, I'm not a cop. I'm not a trained investigator. I have no skills in investigating other than that of a basic reporter. So maybe there's something to this psychic thing. I started hanging around psychic bookstores and talking with different psychics. And at one point, I saw a woman with a pendulum doing dowsing, and it hit me. Hey, I can do that. So I approached her, and she told me about pendulum dowsing. And basically, I'm a self-taught pendulum dowser. I've written several books on the subject since then, but that's how I got into the psychic world and started looking for missing people from that point on.
So can you share with our listeners pendulum dowsing, what that is, how you would go about it?
Yeah, it's a fascinating technique. To me, all the different techniques, crystal ball gazing, dreaming, reading tea leaves, pendulum dowsing, it's all one form of the same thing. It's just different people have different skills. Some people can play the piano, some people can write, some people can paint. But the inspiration all comes from the same place. And with dowsing, your audience, I'm sure, is familiar with the old farmer out in the North 40 with the old witch's stick, the Y-shaped willow stick, looking for water. And when he crosses water, underground water, the stick bends down. And basically, it's the same thing, only I use a weight on a string. And the process is simple. You hold the weight in your hand, ask a question, and if it goes to the right, swings to the right, that's a yes. If it swings to the left, that's a no. If it just goes back and forth, you need to rephrase the question. It's basically that simple. And it's a wonderful investigative tool I have discovered because, one, you get specific answers. There's no interpretation involved. Um, you can get it wrong. You can misinterpret something, but the answers are always there. And with dowsing, it's so factual. You can actually, check it out. You can go to newspaper accounts. You can interview people. You can, look up videos and things like that, and verify the information that you get. It's very, very accurate. And the way I think it works is when you hold the rock on the string, and that's all it is. There's nothing magic about it. It's just it's a weight on the string. But your conscious mind is looking at that weight and is focused on the weight. So that frees up your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind does all the labor. And your subconscious gets in touch with the out there. Define the out there however you want to. God, the universe, Gaia, the Akashic records, whatever label you want to put on it. The information you want to get is out there, and your subconscious is the way you can access it. And dowsing or crystal balls or whatever is how you can manage the process. That's an oversimplification, but that's what it is, and that's how it works, and it works remarkably well. You can contact not only the out there, but in my case, you can contact the spirit world, spirits from the other side, and you can actually contact ET.
So again, that's the part that I think is amazing. So when you saw dowsing, and again, you came from, and that's the part that I was fascinated by in your keynote with our group, is that you weren't really brought into this. It was kind of happened upon you, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I love that idea. So what was it about pendulum dowsing that got it? And one of the things that I actually asked you was, is it being influenced by something otherworldly? And you had said, no, this is, I guess, your subconscious channeling, and you just kind of have identified movement to the right as a yes, movement to the left as a no. But it could be different for every person. It could be up as the yes and down as the no, I believe.
That can be, yeah. Generally, 9 times out of 10, a right swing is a yes, a left swing is a no. But when you get a pendulum, you go through the process we call setting the pendulum, and basically you're just, again, you're not adjusting the pendulum. You're adjusting your subconscious mind. But you ask, every time I ask a question, show me a yes, and it'll swing 9 times out of 10 right. Sometimes it'll swing left. So for that pendulum, a left swing is a yes, and then the right swing would be a no. But again, you're not. It's a process of setting your mind rather than the actual instrument that's being used.
So and in your case, because having seen what you did, it was just a very simple, a crystal, I guess, for lack of a better word, on a string.
Yeah, it's a weight on the string, and it. Yeah, no. People always ask, how do you select a pendulum? And I say, I go for the pretty one. It doesn't matter whether it's wood, metal, plastic,
right,
crystal. Doesn't matter. About one time I was investigating near Tombstone, one of the ghost towns out there, and I just flat out forgot my pendulum, and needed to do the research. So I got a pair of tennis shoes in the truck. I cut off a shoestring, picked up a pebble, tied the pebble onto my shoestring, and that was my pendulum. Worked perfectly. I still have it. So there's nothing magic. There's nothing magical in the pendulum. It's just an instrument.
Sure. And you had mentioned now when you actually do an investigation, you had indicated, you kind of shared with the group that you would take your pendulum and put it over a map, and that the pendulum would assist you in the location. And it was really amazing. And you had told one story where you literally got within feet of what you were looking for, which is fascinating because you were in a giant area. So, that
Yeah,
might be something of interest.
yeah, I did. I spent about 15 years. I'm a co-founder of a group called Find Me. It's an international group of psychics, and I was with them for about 15 years. I'm no longer a part of the organization, but I was a co-founder, and we investigated cases all over the world. And the case you're referring to was up in way up in the mountains of Colorado. And one of the benefits of pendulum dowsing is you can really get specific. One of the problems that the police have with psychic, and it's legitimate. Psychic can give perfectly good information, and it can be absolutely meaningless. In other words, the psychic says the missing person is in the desert. There's a whole range of saguaro cactuses around it. There's a dry stream running north and south. There's a dirt road to the right. There's a fence that says posted on it. I can see mountains in the distance. All right, well, how many places in Arizona does that describe?
You just described the entire state.
Exactly. And it could be, the location could be perfect, a perfect description of where the missing person is, but it's useless because it fits so many descriptions. But with pendulum dowsing, you can get latitude and longitude. You can get long lines, which leads to the map dowsing. You can get out of, we were looking for a case. This is the case I was referring to. And our search area was somewhere in southern Colorado, rather large area. But I got out a general map. Is the missing person north of this highway, south of that highway, east of this highway? That got it down to a certain area. Then I was able to get a topological map and start identifying specific. Is it this back road? Is he on that back road? Is he north of this body of water? Is he south of this particular named rock formation? And I narrowed down the area even further. I was able to get on Google Earth, and just by manipulating the cursor, is he north of this spot, south of that spot, east of this spot, west of that spot? Just close that little box closer and closer and closer until I got a single spot on Google Earth, read off the latitude and the longitude, and that's what I turned over to the authorities. The benefit of that is the police can go, or the FBI or whomever can go directly to that spot. If you're right, you solve the problem. If you're wrong, they know right away, and they're not going to waste a lot of time on it. The case we were discussed at the meeting, right? I had located two spots on a specific mountain, both of them off a dirt road. And as it turned out, this is what they told me later. We were looking for the bones of a missing 12-year-old boy. It's one of those cases where everybody knew who did it, but there was no evidence. You couldn't. You know who did it, but you couldn't prove it. Needed the body. So one of my lat longs, they went to one of my lat longs and they found femurs and some finger bones and different bones. Obviously scattered by the critters. But they turned out, through DNA, it was the bones of the missing boy. And from that, we were able to connect the missing, the bones to the boy, which we were able to connect to the killer. And the other site, curiously, I learned later, the other site, which was, 2 miles away, the police said, we think this is the location where the murder was actually committed. They killed him here and then moved him down the road and tossed him at the other site. So, the point is with pendulum dowsing, you can get extremely specific, verifiable information.
And I think that's the part that amazes me because, when dealing with the paranormal, you really never have any evidence, right? Someone might, feel something, or will be doing a ghost investigation, and a medium will say, I see something in that corner. And of course, the entire group will look over the corner. Now, we don't see anything. It's clearly invisible to us. So you rarely get any kind of significant evidence. But when you look at something like this, and that's why that story was just riveting, because here is irrefutable evidence. And it was interesting because you felt that, although, micro motions in your fingers are kind of what actually moves the pendulum.
Yes.
When you feel like there's some kind of a divinity or some kind of something otherworldly, I guess, or psychic, I guess,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah,
it actually
yeah.
uses you as the conduit.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of it, because when you're contacting the spirit world, the spirit doesn't move the pendulum. When you're talking to ET, ET doesn't move the pendulum. When doing research, the micro muscles in your finger actually do the moving of the pendulum. That's what causes the swing. But the key to it is it's your subconscious mind that is directing those muscles, and it's the subconscious mind that is connected to the out there, the other world. And again, define out there however you want to define it.
Sure. And again, that, and whether you look at, this or more conventional dowsing for that, and again, I think you're right. When I've mentioned dowsing to groups in the past, the first thing they think of is exactly what you said. The farmer got the two sticks walking through a field. Most people think that dowsing is only identified with finding water, and, dowsing essentially could be anything. I believe it's the same, maybe the same something that would slightly move the muscles in your hand to make the dowsing sticks interconnect, that obviously ultimately will do the pendulum. Now, when you say, an ET or even an extraterrestrial, that opens up a different, because, again, there are two schools of camp we find in the paranormal world. There is the spirit ghosts, non-material entities, ethereal types of things. And then there's the other camp that sees, an ET as a physical being. It is, I hasten to use flesh and blood because who the hell knows what they have, but that sees them as an actual physical entity that has some clairvoyant capacity or mind control capacity, something like that. Do you feel a distinction? I mean, do you feel it's always coming from one, or have you ever felt like, this is from one kind of entity, this is from another kind of entity?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And dealing again with the pendulum dowsing, is the connection with the spirit world is connection with what we call ghost. Also in contact with the spirit, and once you and also when you're dealing with ET, you're dealing with physical beings, of non-human physical beings. But it gets a little complex, because you're also, in cases, at least what I run into, you're dealing with non-physical spiritual beings, highly evolved spiritual beings, and also, I've learned to redefine the term soul, because I think of the soul. Again, this is my opinion based on research. The soul is like a multifaceted gem. In other words, the soul is just not that entity within our physical body that goes on. I think there is, for lack of a better term, the soul, call it the oversoul, and in one facet of that soul is inhabiting us right now. Other facets may be inhabiting ourselves in other time frames or even other dimensions. It's very complex.
Yeah,
But
it
the
would seem
dowsing
like
is
it. So,
it's a way to get in touch with all of that.
so would you think of it, when you say the the multidimensional, that would be kind of a non-human spirit, or was never was a human spirit, or was? Do you think it's something from the earth, or is it something that would be from in the cosmos, but not necessarily extraterrestrial, whether it's God or deity or something like that?
Yeah, I think you're getting into all of the above type territory there, because they're definitely spirits roaming the earth, ghosts. There are definitely ETs out there that you can contact. There are also highly evolved spiritual beings who come from, I have no idea, perhaps other dimensions. I don't know if your religion is perhaps from heaven, but they're all out there, and they're all you can make contact with all of those different entities. We had one case. It was really, really interesting. We were talking with a reincarnation event, and we had the person with us physically right in front of us. We were doing the pendulum dowsing. We also called in. She was reincarnated, so we called her her incarnation, her earlier incarnation in, and at the same time we were in contact with the soul of all of the above in one session.
So your reincarnated entity is still kind of an independent entity. So you would have your reincarnated entity that would for lack of a better word, be side by side with your existing entity now.
Exactly. It was it really floored us. We were not expecting that. But yeah, there was several different facets of the same soul were present in the same spot at the same time.
Now, would pendulum dowsing be the using the yes or no? Would that be how you got that information?
Yeah, it was basically a pendulum dowsing. We were just asking questions. Is the reincarnated spirit of this person here? Yes. Is the greater soul of this person here? Yes. And
see, that's amazing.
We just continued it. It floored us. Totally floored us. We were not expecting that. We were thinking in terms of you have a soul, that stays with you. When the body dies, the soul moves on to wherever the soul moves on to. And we were flabbergasted to learn that there's a lot more to the term soul or spirit than we realized.
And I think that's the part that is just fascinating, continues to be fascinating to me, because we're actually working with hypnotherapists right now to do past life regressions of individuals.
I've done a lot of those. There's something to that.
Well, and that's the thing again, and I always say, it's funny because I'm the co-founder of the Tucson Paranormal Society. My wife is actually the psychic. She, I'm a businessman, but I always consider myself kind of a healthy skeptic, where I've seen things, and a devoutly Catholic, right, been my entire life. I've just seen things that I really just can't explain, and there's no scientific justification. And I think that it's interesting because when you look at pendulum down or past life regression, one of the questions. So prior to all of our conference calls, we'll put out a request for questions, and we got a bunch of them for you. But I tried to narrow them down to the ones I think are the most meaningful. For one of the ones that came in was, is a pendulum dowsing just kind of another version of a Ouija board? Is it just kind of like that conduit tool, and it could be a crystal, it could be a Ouija board, it could be a pendulum dowser, it could be is it kind of all the same and it's just a tool, or is each tool uniquely different for a different purpose?
No, I think again with the pendulum, it's just a tool. There is no magic. There's nothing special. It's a rock on the string, and I think it's the same for all of the different tools. Crystal ball, tarot cards, reading the tea leaves. I think the only difference is that an individual person is better at one than he is at the other. I mean, some people are good at dowsing, some people are good at reading tea leaves, some people are good at dreaming. But it's all coming from the same source.
Sure, and I think people naturally gravitate towards the medium.
Yeah,
I think people naturally gravitate towards that medium. So, and again, and I go back to what I said, because, in your conversations, that it was, I guess, again, the riveting part of it for me being that healthy skeptic, I kind of think I tilt towards the scientific. And, when you look at irrefutable evidence and the mechanism that got you to this irrefutable evidence, and whether we're doing a ghost investigation or we're watching meters that are being interacted with someone that something couldn't possibly exist, or in your case in Colorado, and you were kind enough to share many cases that you had that ultimately kind of ended up at this irrefutable evidence. And again, even the skeptic has got to go, what, 1 and 1 makes 2. You have all of these, again, irrefutable evidence, and you can't, it's not coincidence. It's not just lucky guess. It's nothing like that when you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of square acres or thousands of square miles, and you're able to get to an area that is, searchable. And it's interesting. Do you think one of the questions that came in, skeptical, but it was interesting that, they said, well, could you find, how come you don't use this to find gold? And it's interesting because I've had other guests and people that are connected with the Tucson Paranormal Society who it's almost like their gifts only really seem to work for the greater good of humanity. It's like they can't pick the lottery numbers, they can't find gold, they can't, they can't find diamonds. And yet, like in your case, you got this overwhelming, find missing children. I mean, that's not random. That's very specific. So when somebody says, how come you can't get the lotto numbers or find, and maybe you can, I don't know.
I don't know either. Again, this is just my personal opinion, speaking just for myself. But if I was to look for wealth using the pendulum dowsing, I think I would be a miserable failure. That would be that would be an abuse of the gift. I'm not supposed to do that with the talent that I've been given, or the talent that I've inherited, or the talent that I've learned. However, I'm just not supposed to do that.
All right, and I love your mind.
My opinion, I think it would backfire on me. I do. So I don't even try.
It's interesting because your response is in line with every single other one. I've never heard the words abuse of the gift, but now that's the best phraseology that I've ever heard that talks about why someone, can't win the lottery, can't find gold, can't find diamonds. Because again, I do believe, and maybe this is my Catholicism, I do believe that it's a gift from God. I believe that everyone has certain magic that is given to them by some deity. And many people find, like you did, find your magic. I think some people, unfortunately, may die never knowing their magic. But I think that gift is given for the benefit of humanity, whether it's, a Mother Teresa Calcutta who had great humanity for, the suffering of India, but, or to you finding, closure for a family that had that may have had a son that they had a question mark about. So, Dan, I always say this, and it's no doubt in this time, I've gone through literally not even half the questions that we have, and we always run out of time before we run out of, great conversation. So Dan, can you share with our listeners how they would reach you, email, phone number, if you'd like, website, if they have a question, or they have an investigation, they have maybe that nagging question.
Yeah, my websites are www.danbaldwin.com. Currently on that site, I am running my book, The Practical Pendulum, chapter by chapter, one chapter a week. So you can access the whole book if you want to. The other site is www.fournightspress.com. That's FOURKNIGH2S, Four Nights Press. And me, it's just Dan Baldwin, Baldco at msn.com, BALDCO at msn.com. That address is on the website.
Right. And by the way,
and all my books are available in paperback and ebook at the usual sources.
Exactly. And by the way, if anyone needs to contact Dan for any reason, we certainly have all of his contact information available. So, Dan, it was an absolute privilege to have you be our guest. As I said, it was absolutely amazing. And for those that are interested in, the pendulum in general, you could not have a better guide or host to work with. So, Dan, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute privilege. For those that are listening, again, thank you for your time. You're the people that makes this show possible. And inside Tucson Paranormal, our goal is to try to explain the unexplainable. And, for every question that, every answer that we get, we seem to develop 5 more questions. So again, thank you so much.
Exactly.
Privilege. And thank you so much to our listeners. We really look forward to having you join us every Monday at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.